Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Hiking Journal. In today's episode, I take a hike into a remote canyon and take a deeper look into its haunted past. My solo trip up the Fobes Trail to the San Jacinto Divide. Now that I'm retired, I've got a little more free time on my hands, and I enjoy perusing potential hiking areas on a mapping program I have on my computer, and I look for trails and peaks that I haven't been to. One day about a month ago, I stumbled upon a trail that I'd never heard of before. I noticed it terminated right at the PCT, or the Pacific Crest Trail, and we all know about that one. It's called the Fobes Trail, 4E04, and it was in the southern section of the San Bernardino National Forest, just south of Idlewild. I did a quick search on YouTube for some first-hand info, but I only came across a few mountain bike videos and a mention or two of it from PCT thru hikers on their way to Idlewild. Now, zooming in on the map, it revealed a series of black dots hidden way back in the canyon, indicating man-made structures. And here I noticed the words Fobes Ranch. It seemed harmless enough. Someone's got a nice little ranch home back there, no biggie. I'm sure it's private property and it's well posted, but the trail skirts the edge of the property high up on the ridgeline on the way to the Desert Divide. And if I mind my own business and stick to the trail, I shouldn't have any problems, right? Well, as it turns out, this quaint, secluded little ranch has quite the storied past. Located in the San Jacinto Mountains near Lake Hemet, today the 80-acre ranch property includes an updated 2-bedroom, 1.5-bathroom main home with an open floor plan, vaulted ceilings, a Vermont soapstone wood stove, a custom rock fireplace, and a modern kitchen. The second-floor bedroom was built to resemble a fire watchtower with wraparound windows to capture the amazing views. There's also several other buildings on the property, including a barn, a detached 2-car garage, a 1-bedroom guest house, a workshop with a storage loft, and a bunkhouse with 2 built-in bunk beds. However, in the late 1960s, Fobes Ranch wasn't the cozy little getaway home in Dutchess Canyon it appears to be today. It was the hub of an international multi-million-dollar L.S.D. drug operation. The distributor was the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, a group of Orange County surfers who sprinkled around acid like psychedelic Johnny Appleseeds. Their figurehead was also a well-known Harvard University professor named Timothy Leary, who lived on a teepee on property near the apple orchard.
We found Dr. Timothy Leary and his companions here in the mountains of Southern California, the San Bernardino Mountains, in a spot they call heaven. And just what do you do? What's your day-to-day life here?
We breathe a lot of fresh air.
Yes, the air gets us very high, it's so pure, and we just feel good, and we feel tremendously healthy, and we climb these beautiful mountains and get very high and very close to God up there, and we plant a lot of seeds, and we're very close to nature, and it's a righteous way, and we want to get more and more people to share our joy. Just that.
Leary was a clinical psychologist at Harvard University and oversaw the controversial Concord prison experiment and the Marsh Chapel experiment, which tested the effects of psychedelic drugs on prisoners and theology students in the early 1960s, like psilocybin, or better known as magic mushrooms, and other psychedelic drugs. He became a strong proponent of using mind-altering drugs to treat behavioral disorders. Now, Leary believed that a synthetic chemical called lysergic acid dithylamide, better known as L.S.D., showed potential for therapeutic use in psychiatry. He himself used L.S.D. on a regular basis and developed a psychology of mind expansion and personal truth through L.S.D. After being fired from Harvard University, he continued to publicly promote the use of psychedelic drugs and became a well-known figure for the hippie counterculture in the 1960s. He popularized the catchphrases that promoted his philosophy, such as turn on, tune in, and drop out, think for yourself, and question authority. He also wrote and spoke frequently about transhumanist concepts of space migration, intelligent increase, and life extension. Whoa, that's deep. Now, the Brotherhood of Eternal Love was started by a guy named John Griggs, a local Orange County boy who operated his headquarters in Laguna Beach at a place known as the Mystic Arts Head Shop. Because of the intense scrutiny by law enforcement, they retreated to the remote Garner Valley ranch, once home to an old stagecoach driver named Ray Fobes and his wife Maud. They called it the Fobes Ranch, and so it is named on the map. And that's where the story takes an odd turn. When the Brotherhood of Hippies moved into the ranch, it had already been vacant for a couple of years and was getting pretty run down by now. They occupied the farmhouse surrounded by a circle of 7 teepees and grew their own vegetables. A wooden watchtower was hidden in the trees and enabled the Brotherhood to spot any unwanted intruders moving up the windy dirt road to the hideaway. They stayed high all the time, smoking as many as 30 joints a day and dropping acid whenever the spirit moved them. The locals had an idea something was brewing, though. As a historian, Margaret Janke remembers visiting Leary's ranch with her dad, who was a cattleman, when he was out looking for strays. They were greeted by lookouts stationed on a wooden tower. I think everybody knew something was going on there. It wasn't anything we wanted to be mixed up in, that's for sure. The hippies were idealists who operated vegetarian soup kitchens, rallied against the Vietnam War, and believed L.S.D. could reform humanity. In honor of the life-changing drug, the water tower at Fobes was painted bright orange for Orange Sunshine, a type of L.S.D. tablet that was made right here at the ranch. Liquid L.S.D. was manufactured by a chemist elsewhere and infused into the tablets right here on premise. The combination for the locked entrance gate was 1943, the year L.S.D. was invented. I wonder if it's still the same. The Brotherhood planned on giving away the L.S.D., at which the Brotherhood did with remarkable efficiency, and some of their product even ended up with the troops in Vietnam. They would distribute the tablets on cards or liquid drops, placed on stamps that were called hits. They were even tossed by handfuls into the crowd at Anaheim Stadium during a rock concert, and dropped tabs laced with acid from an airplane onto a field in a Laguna Beach outdoor concert venue that became known as the Christmas Happening, or the West Coast Woodstock. Once enough had been distributed and enough people had tried it, the Brotherhood then set up a business that allowed them to make money off the doses. Timothy Leary, now something of a superstar, was a large part of this sales technique and was its spokesman. But now Leary, who was remarried for the 3rd time, this time to his new wife, a young ex-model named Rosemary, well, they had a standing invitation from John Griggs to visit the ranch anytime they wanted. When they arrived, Leary was greeted by the Brotherhood like a private heaven-sent prophet, and he acted every bit the part too, preaching to the group about love, peace, and enlightenment. On one weekend, the famous rock band Moody Blues dropped by. This visit inspired the hit song Legend of a Mind, and the lyrics, Timothy Leary's dead. No, 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 he's outside looking in. That's pretty creepy. All that notoriety surrounding Leary's movements was something of a mixed blessing for the Brotherhood, though. They were happy to provide living expenses for the acid guru and his finances as he traveled frequently up to Berkeley, where he rented another house. But Leary also attracted a lot of attention, which is exactly what the secret dope smuggling outfit didn't need. This operation lasted for a few years, but things were soon to change. Leary was investigated by law enforcement after a young girl drowned in a small pond on the property, and LSD was found in her system. We'll get a little better look at that a little later. Leary was exonerated, but then in 1969, John Griggs also died of a drug overdose at the ranch while experimenting with another psychedelic drug. This led to a raid by narcotics officers in 1972 that ended in 29 indictments and the effectual end of the Brotherhood, which at this time had earned the name the Hippie Mafia. All in all, Timothy Leary's time in the San Jacinto Mountains was relatively brief, but historically important to those who study the counterculture of the 1960s. Leary died in Beverly Hills in 1996 at 75 years of age, surrounded by his family and friends. Fobes Ranch gets a new start. Well, sort of. After hitting the market last year for $1.5 million, the Fobes Ranch found its next owner, YouTube star Logan Paul, who has amassed over 23 million followers on YouTube and earns an estimated $32 million a year and has a net worth of a whopping $245 million. Now, Paul purchased it for $1 over the $1 million price, as first reported by the LA Times. Now, Paul gained fame and fortune by posting videos on his YouTube channel starting in 2013, and most notably sparked a torrent of controversy after posting a video showing a dead body hanging from a tree in a wooded area known as the Suicide Forest in Japan. Paul is also an actor and appeared on the TV series Law & Order, Special Victims Unit, and the 2019 film Airplane Mode. He's also a professional boxer who makes an average of $5 million per fight. Having discovered this hidden gem in my own backyard, I was chomping at the bit to get out there and check it out. So I picked a date on the calendar and tried to recruit someone to accompany me on this journey. My first experience at the Fobes Trail didn't really go exactly as I had hoped for. About a month later, I made a trip to Garner Valley to try and find the historic Fobes Ranch and take a hike up the Fobes Trail to the PCT. Now, I was pretty familiar with the Garner Valley area, having hiked many trails up to the desert divide of the San Jacinto Mountains, so I didn't even bother to bring a map. I'd just drive up the road, park at the signed trailhead, and start hiking. Well, little did I know that once you make the turn off the highway, there's a myriad of unsigned dirt roads twisting and winding their way through the valley, heading in many directions, and none of them were marked. Go figure. I spent a good hour driving my Jeep around and around looking for signs of a trail and couldn't find any. It's a scenic area, mind you, but not very efficient if you wanted to get a head start on that summer heat that had been beating down on me all morning. By the time I found the correct rocky and rutted Forest Service road and drove the 5 miles to a locked gate, it was damn near 10 a.m. and 85 degrees. As I reached the dead end of the road and the locked gate, signs were plainly posted everywhere. Security cameras were mounted on poles on either side of a heavy metal gate, and warnings posted of 24-hour surveillance. Those were hard to miss. They even had solar powers to power lights to illuminate those attempting to enter. Well, not exactly a friendly welcoming. This was the entrance to the Fobes Ranch, the historic residence of Timothy Leary, and now the property of Logan Paul. Here the road made a wide loop. I drove off slowly looking for a place to park to access the Fobes Trail that was just a few hundred yards or so back toward the highway, according to my AllTrails map I had on my phone. I found an unmarked turnout beside a large round boulder and parked out of the way the best I could. I pulled out my phone and opened the AllTrails app to a map I had downloaded for off-trail use. This confirmed that I was at the trailhead. There were no signs here, no kiosk, no familiar yellow entering the National Forest land signs, nothing. By now it was damn near 90 degrees, and due to the hurricane that was spinning just off the coast of Mexico, the humidity was a stifling 90%. By the time I hiked a half mile up to the trail, I was dying. There was no breeze here to speak of, and the sun was beating down on my head like I was under a French fry lamp at McDonald's. I had sweated completely through my breathable shirt, and sweat was running down my face in rivers. As I hiked further up the canyon, I was tucked in on the leeward side of some large granite boulders and a steep slope. Now, there wasn't a breath of air here, and I already began to cramp and feel nauseated. Something just wasn't right. I felt horrible. I had this nagging doubt that when I got back to the Jeep, all my tires would be slashed. I also had this paranoid feeling that I was being watched. You know the feeling. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but somehow I knew I shouldn't be here, and they knew it too.
You know, I have to say, I'm a little nervous taking this trail because first thing you notice on the trail, the first several feet down, is an exploded shotgun shell. So they have a pretty heavy duty gate down there. They've also got signs everywhere saying they have surveillance. And you can see the cameras up on the poles. So it looks like they take their privacy pretty high here. And hopefully I won't run into anybody that I don't want to on the trail other than a hiker. So anyway, I'm well prepared. Everybody knows where I'm at today. Just sent my wife a message where I'm parked with the GPS coordinates. So hopefully all will go well today. But man, it's hot already. All right, well, I don't know if you can tell. The sweat is just running down my face. I haven't even got a mile. Not even a mile. And I'm dying. I haven't sweat this much in years. It feels like it's 85 with 85% humidity. I was hoping to at least make PCT over there, but you know, at this point, this isn't fun. It's just too hot. It's too humid. Man. I don't know. I'm about ready to give up already. This might be something I do another day. Come up here when it's colder and it's not 50% humidity or 80% humidity. Oh man. I think I'm gonna head back to the car. Maybe I'll go find a nice place to sit and hang out for a while and have lunch. Call it a day. Some days it's just not worth it. I think this is one of them.
I made a command decision to pull the plug on this adventure and retreated back to the Jeep before it got any worse. After all, I was on a solo hike, and this wasn't either the time or the place to push the envelope.
You know, I feel bad for turning around. I feel like kind of a wuss. But when it's this hot and it's this humid, I'm losing a ton of water. I was going to bring a 3-liter hydration bag, which I did bring, and an extra liter in an Aquafina bottle. I was going to put my electrolytes in. I forgot, I left it at home. So I only got 3 liters of water, which is normally plenty for most people, but when you're sweating this much and you're only less than a mile in the hike out of a 8.5 mile hike, it's going to just get hotter as the day goes on. That's a recipe for disaster. You know, I could sweat out all my water content. It's kind of rocky right here. I gotta kind of pay attention. Salt could be imbalanced, and next thing you know, I've got heat exhaustion, starting to feel nauseated, lightheaded, and starting to get muscle cramps. And if I don't have the ability to cool down, that could eventually lead to heat stroke. And a heat emergency is not something you want to have, especially on a trail, and nobody goes up like this one, very remote. And I'm also by myself. And of course, on a remote trail like this, there's obviously no cell phone coverage. I do have my inReach, so I can get out with that. And believe it or not, today, I actually brought my ham radio. I don't know if I could hit something from here because I'm down in a gully, but I probably could. Most likely there's something somewhere that I could hit. Probably Palomar. But anyway, today wasn't the day to take a chance. You know what I mean? There's always other days. I'm retired. I can hike any day I want. And I can pick a better day.
When I arrived back at the Jeep, I felt a sense of relief to find everything normal. My Jeep still locked and the tires inflated.
All right. Well, to be honest, I've never felt so good to be back in the Jeep. And if I stand, right here, there's a breeze. Oh, geez. You would not believe how sweaty I am. I mean, look at my face. That was after a mile and a half, 1.79. Oh my God. I am dying. I don't know how people do it in the South with the humidity. I really don't. I don't know how they do it. But anyway, I'm gonna head back down the fire road. Normally I'd have a beer, but I'm going with Gatorade right now, because man, that was rough. That was rough, especially for how short of a distance it was. I have a couple of these in the car, plus some soda and some water, and of course a beer. I could see today being a day somebody that's hiking gonna have some problems, and even the road could be an issue. You know, if it gets a thunderstorm comes through here and this gets all muddy, I could see people getting stuck up here because this It's a lot of clay in the soil. So anyway, I'm heading away from the ranch, back toward the highway. And I might pull over somewhere in the shade down there in those pines to take a break. I deserve it. This was a tough day. It was a tough morning. It was only a morning. It was a tough morning. Anyway, I'll catch up with you in a few minutes.
On the drive out, I ran into an older woman wearing tan Columbia hiking pants, a flannel long sleeve shirt, and a wide brim hat walking down the dirt road with her border collie. I stopped and talked to her briefly about just how miserable I was and how shitty the hike had been. As I told her my story, she never smiled and eyed me with suspicion. I thought she might have been another lost hiker looking for the trailhead like I had, but she said she lived in nearby Dutchess Canyon and was keeping an eye on the cattle for a family friend. I could tell she really didn't take too kindly to outsiders. Even though I was on the Public Forest Service truck trail, she wasn't too keen on the idea of me being up there. I didn't dare mention anything about the Leary Ranch or Logan Paul. She volunteered that she knew the family that owned the ranch up the road for a long time, and since they were getting up in years, she'd like to come up here once a week or so just to keep an eye on their cattle. Now, Garner Valley is a small, tight-knit community, and I know damn good and well she knew all about the history of the ranch and Logan Paul. Old family friend my ass.
Well, I just ran across a really nice lady, older gal with her border collie. She was up here. She had a Subaru. She was parked on the side of the road, and her dog was out running. And talked to her for a good 15 minutes. She said she was up here tending the cattle. So she comes up here and checks on them, I guess, every couple of days, and has the dog kind of help her out. This road's really rough right here. But she lied to me, which I found kind of interesting. One of the reasons I came here was to get a good glimpse of the Timothy Leary Ranch, which is now owned by Logan Paul, the YouTube star, who's also a boxer or MMA fighter or something. And with all the history behind Timothy Leary, and that, you know, he's been living there, you know, he bought that place in the 60s until the FBI closed it down. It was the hippie commune. And she just denied all of that. She told me a couple that own the ranch, the big ranch house at the end of the road, their family has owned that since the 1930s. And they have fruit trees up there, and they have cattle. And she didn't mention anything about Logan Paul or about Timothy Leary back in the day. And she said that her family's been keeping an eye on the property for 40, 50 years. So somebody's not telling the truth here. Considering the story about Timothy Leary and Logan Paul was printed by the newspaper, and there's pictures to prove it, I kind of lend to believe that that's probably more the truth, and she's probably just trying to not let the public know about what the history is behind the location, because that would attract more people down this dirt road and it would probably disturb the cattle, which is probably her real reason for being up here. I'm sure that's why she was here. But anyway, she was nice and friendly. And she said, yeah, it got some really good rain up here yesterday in the afternoon. And that's where all this moisture comes from. That's where all the rain comes from. So anyway, that was interesting turn of events. I'm sure she's not used to seeing many people up here. As I'm heading back down the truck trail, back down to the highway.
Here there was a huge tree and a great spot to park in the shade to eat lunch, have a beer, and maybe decompress a little. I'd be much safer out here in the wide open spaces in front of God and everybody. I parked the Jeep and sat down on my ice chest in the shade and ate my lunch.
Well, I'm taking a break before I start heading home, and my sister got me these for my birthday. She bought me 2 cases of Built bars. These are 100% gluten-free energy bars with 20 grams of protein, and they came from I believe it's American Fork, Utah, just not too far from where she lives and works. And they got a bunch of different flavors. This one's salted caramel. And these are phenomenal. I can't get these out here in Southern California. But since it's so close to Salt Lake where she lives, she's able to pick these up for me. So these things are phenomenal. They're kind of like candy bars, but they're protein bars. They have 20 grams of protein in them.
About 15 minutes later, I heard the rumbling of a vehicle behind me. To my surprise, it was the lady with the dog driving slowly past in a blue Subaru Outback. I had this sneaky feeling that she had been keeping an eye on me the whole time.
Making her way out.
I continued eating my lunch till more sounds got my attention behind the Jeep. Since I hadn't passed any other vehicles driving out along the Forest Service Road except her, and since there were no other routes out of the canyon, this second vehicle had to have come from the ranch and on the other side of the locked gate. I craned my neck around and noticed that it was a full-size black Dodge truck with a lift kit and a roof rack. Now this wasn't your run-of-the-mill Dodge truck, but a special edition TRX, a 700 horsepower monster, sticker way out of my price range. It drove very slowly past my Jeep and rolled toward the highway while I stood up. The truck stopped suddenly and idled. There was no reason for it. He just stopped, put on the brakes, idling. The windows were heavily tinted so I couldn't see the driver, but I had this feeling he was watching me. Not being one to be easily intimidated, I moved around the hood of my Jeep and began walking toward the truck. The brake lights flickered, then went out, and the truck continued rolling slowly along, and finally made a turn onto the highway.
Well, I wonder if that is Logan Paul, his truck. Really nice four-wheel drive truck. And there was nothing out that way because they just came down that road and it goes only to that ranch at the end. Be curious.
When I got home, I looked up Logan Paul in this truck. Sure enough, he drives a lifted black Dodge TRX, and not any TRX, but this TRX. I saw several photos of him standing beside it, so there was no doubt in my mind that it was him checking me out. And for all I knew, that old lady could have stiffed a call to him to let him know somebody was in the area snooping around. Hey, I get it. He probably bought the ranch to get away from it all. The pressures of being a YouTube celebrity and all that media attention. Oddly enough, I respect that. It still didn't make me feel any more comfortable, though. With all the history of this compound, the death, the drugs, and now him staring at me. Well, let's just say I wasn't heading back up there anytime soon. At least not by myself. Or was I?
Well, in the next edition of the journal, I go back out to the Fobes Ranch, and this time I make it all the way up to the top of the PCT junction up there. And on the way back, I get a great view overlooking the Fobes Ranch, the Timothy Leary Ranch, and now the Logan Paul Ranch. And I see some interesting things along the way. On the way down, I noticed the pond where the 17-year-old girl drowned. I also noticed the black SUV that was kind of parked in a weird spot down the trail, and through binoculars I could tell that it wasn't quite right. Something about it wasn't right. And I discovered more about that. And I also find out that in one of the episodes, Logan Paul talks about finding a hidden mountain lake. And it turns out the hidden mountain lake isn't really hidden. It's actually the pond on his property where the girl drowned. So stick around for part 2 of this episode, The Mystery of the Fobes Ranch, coming up next.
Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Hiking Journal. My hike up the Fobes Trail to the Pacific Crest Trail Junction and my discovery of the historic Fobes Ranch, home of the legendary L.S.D. guru Timothy Leary and the Brotherhood of Eternal Love. If you have any comments or questions about this or any other edition of the Hiking Journal, drop me a line in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to click and subscribe and tap that notification bell to get the latest updates to the channel as I post them. Anyway, stay safe out there and I'll see you down the trail. Take care. Bye-bye.